Hey there, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here on Wave Now. I'm Myra, and sorry, hope you're having a great day so far. All right, so I'm pretty guilty of this. I will chug an energy drink here and there when I am feeling sluggish, and my kids see me doing it, and they're like, "Mommy, what is that?" So if you are one of those who kind of relies on energy drinks and you have children, this is a really interesting study that just came out. Calls to the U.S. Poison Centers concerning children consuming energy drinks. It spiked to about 20% in 2023, according to newly released data from the America's Poison Center. So we are joining now Dr. Jennifer Stiff from Norton Children's today to talk about this because kids are curious. They always are wondering, what is the cool thing to be drinking? I know my son always asks me about Prime. That's his favorite thing right now, the non-caffeinated one. But kids drinking energy drinks, it's really dangerous. It can be serious.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you look up, how much caffeine should my kid have or should they have this energy drink? Pretty invariably, the answer is none and no. There's not actually been any studies that support any safe amount of caffeine intake in the pediatric population. But it's definitely something that we see. And I think a lot of families aren't really even aware of what all is in the drinks that they're consuming, that their kids might be consuming, because you just assume that if it's on the shelf, then it's okay.
And these energy drinks, I want to show you some video right now, just of, they look pretty. They're brightly colored. They're kind of eye-catching. So it's kind of a natural instinct for kids to kind of be curious about them. And sometimes you may not realize, you think, oh, they're just grabbing a soda. But the way they look can be kind of confusing unless you're reading that label and you're paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely, the bright colors are very attractive to kids. And, like you're saying with the one that your son is wanting to drink and is interested in, it's like word spreads quickly on the playground. Somebody's got it, then everybody else wants it, and it looks cool. Some of them, they just very, like you're saying, colorful, very eye-catching for the containers that they're in. But yeah, it is really important to know what you're getting, because just looking at how much is in an energy drink or how much caffeine is in an energy drink versus a regular soda. Most regular sodas, there's variation on brand, but most sodas are in the 30 to 40 milligrams of caffeine per can, versus an energy drink, the range is 160 to 300 milligrams of caffeine per can. So huge difference, not the same as just drinking a soda.
So Dr. Stiff, what does drinking an energy drink for children, what does that do to them?
Well, for the most part, we think about the acute kind of short-term side effects. We've been really focused so far on the caffeine, but there's other stuff in a lot of these energy drinks. So the sugar content is often pretty high in a lot of these energy drinks. And then they have other kind of supplements, additives in them that aren't always FDA regulated. So it's hard to say how much exactly of a lot of those things are in the drink. In the immediate short term, definitely see that jittery feeling, which we've probably all had with either an energy drink or you had too much coffee without your breakfast in the morning. So that jittery feeling, increased heart rates, increased blood pressures, definitely anxiety. We see a lot of kids who have trouble sleeping, and one of my first questions is how much caffeine are you having in the afternoon? Because we know that if we're having all those caffeinated beverages in the afternoon, we are going to struggle to fall asleep and see issues with insomnia because of that. The hyperactivity, nausea or poor appetite, because our belly is full of sugar and caffeine, headaches, dizziness, dehydration, because we're drinking this energy drink that isn't actually giving our body the proper hydration. And then we're also giving our body something that's asking more of it by the elevated heart rate and the elevated blood pressure. So our body's working hard and not kind of getting what it needs to make up for that hard work.
Talk to me about cardiac issues that it can also lead to. That's of concern as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there have been a few deaths that have been, thought to be linked to the energy drink intake. The increased heart rate is huge, the increased blood pressure. And I think one of the questions that's kind of out there and maybe not really been fully explored yet is the long-term consequences of having this increased heart rate and increased blood pressure at such a young age from the energy drink intake. Like, does that have long-lasting implications as far as like having high blood pressure or heart disease as an adult? Again, I think that's a little bit like we don't know yet, but something to really kind of think about, the long-term implications, especially if a kid has any underlying like heart problem or arrhythmia. They're going to be at higher risk of this, the energy drinks causing heart related issues. And so can definitely, increased heart rate can kind of send you into an abnormal heart rhythm, which would be a reason for someone to end up in the emergency room or worse from the energy drink intake. Other things that put kids at higher risk, if they have any underlying like seizure disorders or migraine issues, then we may see kind of like breakthrough of those health issues, like those health issues getting worse.
Here locally, according to the Kentucky Poison Control Center, they have received about 200 cases since 2020. Those are phone calls that they have received, but exposure does not equal poisoning, which is important to know. So that's like people calling and saying, hey, my child's, done this. What should I do? Calling poison control. What do you do if you realize, okay, my young child has just consumed an energy drink? Should I be worried? Do I look out for symptoms or just hope it passes?
Yeah. Well, if you realize they got into something you didn't intend for them to get into, or if you kind of after the fact, read the label and were like, oh no, calling poison control is always a good first step of like letting someone know exactly what the child consumes so that they can look into like, okay, next steps. I would also recommend that like following that with water, as long as the child is alert and interact, we're not worried life-threatening kind of thing. Then making sure that they're drinking plenty of water, maybe giving them a snack, trying to help kind of give the body some tools to overcome that increased heart rate or that increased blood pressure that's often seen. So I would start with like, water and a snack as my first defense while, calling poison control to make sure. Or, you could often reach out to your pediatrician's office as well. They can probably walk you through first steps and kind of help you think through, okay, what's the thing that's going to make me escalate to this kid needs to go to the emergency room versus what can I watch out for at home?
So you mentioned earlier, Dr. Stiff, okay, so no energy drinks, no caffeine for children. What ages are we talking about? Is there a point where caffeine, some type of caffeine, whether it's in a Pepsi or a Coke or a cup of coffee, can be okay for maybe older kids to drink, if that makes sense?
No, totally makes sense. So there's again not like a good federal regulation that says like these are the rules or the recommendations regarding caffeine intake. The American Academy of Pediatrics has come out with guidelines that really 11 and under, nothing. The answer is they really don't recommend caffeine intake in the younger kids. Really, 12, when we're thinking of like teenage, adolescent years, the recommendation, sorry, I'm checking my notes here for the jump, was less than 100 milligrams in the older kind of teenage group. And so if you think about it, that's maybe like 2 or 3 cans of soda, depending on which one you're having, maybe like a cup of coffee. Most cups of coffee are around like 95-ish milligrams of caffeine in a cup of coffee. So that's the level we're thinking of for the adolescent range. And if we go back to our initial discussion of these energy drinks often contain anywhere from 160 to 300 milligrams, you've already like surpassed that recommendation of 100. milligrams a day.
All right, so it's kind of very clear. Let's just avoid it. Have them get into the habit. I know kids. It's hard for them sometimes to consume water, or they don't want to because it's not as sweet and sugary. But that is their best option.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And I always tell families, if your kid doesn't like water, I get it. At our house, like, someone has to have their water out of the refrigerator with 3 pieces of ice. It just tastes better cold. So if that's how then he needs his water, then albeit we will put 3 pieces of ice and he will get it out of the fridge so it's good and cold. But they make the water flavoring packets that are sugar free and are caffeine free. So if we need a little bit of something like that to help us kind of transition into plain water from whatever it is that we're drinking at the moment, then that's fine. We prefer the plain water, but if we need a little bit of flavor to kind of get us closer to that goal, then that's fine.
Perfect. All right, Dr. Stiff, is there anything that I didn't ask you today that you think our viewers need to know about in regards to caffeine, energy drinks, and the do's and the don'ts?
I think the big takeaway for me is, for parents to pay attention to what's on the labels and be aware of what their kids are drinking, and be mindful, like you mentioned at the beginning, of what example are we setting for our children, right? So if they're seeing us have a cup of coffee in the morning and then move on with our day, that seems like a relatively healthy relationship with caffeine, but making sure that we're setting forth the examples that we want our kids to follow, and paying attention to the labels and what's in those drinks.
All right, this was a good reminder for me too. Thank you so much, Dr. Stiff, for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful day and gain something from this stream that we provided for you today. I'm Myra Ansari with Norton Children's today. Hope you have a wonderful day.